Inflation continues to weigh on the economy, with the Department of Labor reporting the cost for goods and food producers remains high. Now, those prices affecting everything from groceries to rent. For more on the rising cost of goods, let's get to Red Apple Group CEO John Catsimatidis. Thank you so much for joining us. And a note that Catsimatidis is also out with a new book called How Far Do You Want to Go?, set to launch on February 28th. So obviously very busy. So we'll start, of course, with groceries and what we saw with inflation data there. We saw 11.3% higher for grocery prices in January than the year before. How are you managing these costs? We know that some grocers are passing it on to consumers, and others, like Walmart and Whole Foods, according to the Wall Street Journal, are asking suppliers to lower their prices.
Well, I've been a CEO for over 50 years, and the reason I wrote the book is because I want other people to realize all the complexities of being a CEO for so long. How do you manage? You try to stay ahead of the curve. When prices are going up, if you don't stay ahead of the curve, you're going to get hurt. And CEOs, most CEOs know it. The ones that are not smart enough don't know it, and they end up losing. And again, common sense, which I named one of the things in the book, is the fact that make sure common sense prevails. What happened when oil went through the roof? That's what caused all the inflation to happen in food. Now, there's a conflict in the world. The conflict in the world is the Russians want high crude prices. OPEC, Saudi Arabia want high food prices, oil prices. What happens? If oil goes up, then food goes up. If oil stabilizes, then food will eventually go down, other expenses will go down, et cetera, et cetera. And the way America wins, right now in America, in the last 2 years, because of all the crises going on, we moved trillions of dollars of wealth from North America to elsewhere in the world. And this is the problem we're having. America wants $70 oil. Guess what? Right. This morning, oil went down almost $3 a barrel. And if it keeps going down, and if the Fed stabilizes, then you're going to have the end of inflation. The Russians don't want that. The OPEC nations, they want $100 oil. They don't want that.
So, John,
what are we going to do?
So, John, I know that you focus on really, common sense and instinct, especially that's something that you highlight in your book. So then how are you evaluating the opportunities in this sort of environment?
Well, you have to evaluate. Right now, real estate prices are in the toilet. They're going straight down. Why? Who's going to pay 6%, 7% for a 30-year mortgage? Who's going to pay, who's going to pay those rates? Nobody. Construction loans. Who's going to pay 8% for construction loan? Nobody. So right now, 20% of the industry, real estate is 20% of the industry of our country. We're destroying that. How do you fix a problem by just creating a new problem? It doesn't work. Common sense. Fix the problem that created the problem, which is let's make sure oil is $65, $70 a barrel, and everything else will go away, and interest rates should come down following that.
And John, I know that with Red Apple Group, you're pretty diversified here. You have holdings in energy, aviation, retail, and real estate. How are you balancing your portfolio at the moment?
Well, that's why I'm able to make correct projections, because we're in all those things. And it is difficult, but like I said, I'm a CEO for 50 years. Stay ahead of the curve. If we don't stay ahead of the curve, and that's what I tell about in my book. If you're a young CEO, I try to teach them, how are you going to make $1 billion too? And I understand Amazon was the #1 business book last night on Amazon. So, how do you we want you to make $1 billion too.
Oh, I do quickly just want to ask you, obviously, the American dream has shifted a lot, from when a lot of us were kids. What do you think it looks like now, and how hard or easy is it now to achieve?
There's a clash in our country between entrepreneurs that want to have the American dream, that want to work 100 hours a week, 90 hours a week to create the American dream, versus the people that don't want to do that. So there's a clash in our country for the first time in that particular situation. And America has to decide, for whom does America stand for? Does it stand for growth, entrepreneurship, or does it stand for the woke culture? That's bottom line.
And I do, of course, want to ask, we have the 2024 presidential elections beginning to shape up, attention turning to names like Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, former President Trump, as the 2024 presidential race is drawing near. A change in leadership could have obviously big impacts on the legislations facing regional and mid-sized businesses. So let's return to how business regulation and politics could shape up. We're going to continue this conversation now with you, John, here. So, I mean, you've donated to both Republicans and Democrats. How are you deciding this right now, and what are you prioritizing? What's important to you this election season?
I love Bill Clinton. I was a Clinton Democrat. I loved him. I thought he made common sense decisions. So on my radio show that I have is I believe in common sense Democrats, common sense Republicans. I try to interact them at our 5 o'clock show and say, okay, let's argue. Let's scream at each other. Let's try to come to common sense solutions. But you know what we do at 6 o'clock? We all hug each other, just like the old-fashioned way of arguing during the day, like Tip O'Neill did with Ronald Reagan, like Bill Clinton did with Newt Gingrich. We just want everybody to work together for a better America. And that's what we stand for, a better America. Because right now, my only concern with President Biden is I think he's a little bit too soft on China. And that's my personal concern.
Now, obviously, I want to talk about some of these front runners here. What do you think of the crowd for the GOP right now? Obviously, you have Nikki Haley most recently, but obviously you have Ron DeSantis and former President Trump also throwing his name in. When you look at how you would like perhaps the economy or the business environment to go, who do you think would be in a better position?
I thought President Trump could have been another Ronald Reagan. But his problem was he made new enemies every day. And this is what I write in my book, is I want to make new friends every day. And the success entrepreneur makes new friends every day instead of making new enemies every day. And I think Nikki Haley might make a great vice president. I don't see her in the #1 spot.
Oh, I was going to ask you about your presidential aspirations. I know you tried your hat at perhaps the mayoral race. Any idea of perhaps at some point you might run for president?
Well, you know something? Everybody wants to be president when they grow up. Unfortunately, I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 6 months old. Even though my grandfathers came in 1913, I'm an immigrant. I can't run for president unless me and Schwarzenegger get an exemption.
Well, if anyone can, I'm sure you can. A big thank you there to Red Apple Group CEO John Catsimatidis. Thank you for joining us. And of course, John's newest book, How Far Do You Want to Go?, out on February 28th. Thanks so much.